Whalefall, Gone and Forgotten. Episode 9, Waterlogged. Field Notes, File 9, Ophelia Colt recording at 7:45 a.m. on October 7th, 2024. My brother, Henricus, sent along some scans of our father's records. He was in Arkansas in 2005, visiting Little Rock, Cabot, Boonville, Eureka Springs, Fayetteville, and eventually, Lake Fargo. He wasn't here for long. He didn't even stay overnight. All he writes is that the town, quote, has potential, end quote, but he doesn't mention what for. He doesn't even write why he visited in the first place. He does write about Caitlin Boyle as a, quote, woman who had a mark of doom about her, end quote, and that he felt for the poor girl, knowing there was nothing he could do. He does, however, have several notes on what he calls places of industrial power. Things like water treatment plants and railways. But we've been looking into those for years. Everyone knows that there are environmental consequences to building anything like those. Maybe he was tracking how these places messed with the old god magic? I don't know. I can't find anything about mysterious deaths that would be something like I'm researching now. I don't understand. Every time I have some kind of lead, it just dries up. And of course, the body in the woods, Mr. John Doe. I've drawn out a diagram of the holes I found in the body and compared it with known marionette designs, and they don't match up. Some of the holes in the joints looked like they overlapped, but there were too many holes in the body to tell. I don't know where to look next. Just that there's something rotten. I don't know how to feel about this place anymore. I'm tired. It's too quiet here, but the bugs are too loud. I've been all jumpy about grasshoppers since reading the last story. I tried walking in the woods yesterday, but I just felt watched. Oh, and I found another story this morning. This one was on my kitchen counter when I went to make coffee. I already have a bad feeling about it. It looks depressing. It's been going on for a long time now. I lost my Dahlia back in '02. I think I started hearing them sometime around then. I don't like sitting alone in that house, now that it's just me. I spend my days on the water. Lake Fargo is good for that, especially if you live by the docks. Lots of good fishing out there, good eating if you have the time and energy to clean what you catch. I'm not fond of those loud motors. I didn't grow up with one on my papa's boat, and by the time I could afford such a thing, I was too old and too tired to manage one. I find great joy in pushing myself out in my small boat, rowing myself through the morning mist. I suppose that's why I could hear the voices when they started. I was out on the water at sunrise, like always, and had just thrown in a line. At first, I honestly thought it was another boat or some people on the island coast, but no one goes swimming here, and there was no wake in the water other than the ripples of my own little vessel. The fog was strong that day, turning the trees of the surrounding coast into blurs of color. It truly seemed, in that moment, like I was the only thing that existed. I knew I could hear voices, not clearly enough to pick out words, but it was the rhythm of speech coming from seemingly the fog itself. Anyone from outside this town would be fooled, but growing up in Lake Fargo, you know in your core where the old bridge is. So when I heard those voices in the distance, that part of me knew, deep down, exactly where they came from. I also knew to never, under any circumstances, go near that bridge alone. Scaring away the damn fish with all that racket, I said to myself. And as if the voices could hear me from such a distance, they faded away into the morning stillness. They were replaced by the roar of cicadas and the flitting wings of dragonflies. I'm not sure why, but this made me feel quite alone. The water is where I go to escape such a feeling, so I did not appreciate it finding me there, wishing for the sound of humanity to come back to the air. That feeling stayed with me the rest of the day, and I am ashamed to say it made me a little cranky when I went to town to do my errands. My dinner tasted dull and dry. I went to bed early and woke even earlier. I know I dreamed, but I don't know what of. I remember floating in a dark void and not being able to breathe. In the morning, I found myself sitting up in bed, covered in sweat. I was full of this itch to get back to the water, drive away the feeling that had settled over me, weighing me down like an anchor around my feet. And so I did. I allowed my vessel to drift of its own accord, only pushing myself around the sunken branches with my oar when necessary. It was even earlier than I had been out the previous morning, the sun barely out and the fog once again blanketing the lake. Eventually I began to hear them. Soft whispers rolling over the water. It was with those voices that the feeling I'd been wrestling with lifted from me. I could hear them clearer this time, pick out individual voices. The boat drifted about, and I was vaguely aware that I was heading in the direction of the bridge, but I made no move to stop it. I could hear voices I knew, my son, my wife, friends long gone. Suddenly the morning fog felt more like an embrace. I think that's why I kept going out there. I stopped fishing, stopped bringing my poles and bait, just pushed off the shore each morning and didn't come back until nightfall. It continued like this for weeks. Day after day, I avoided town. I didn't buy groceries or tackle. One day I woke to find an officer at my door, claiming he'd been conducting a welfare check. He demanded we talk, but all I wanted to do was get to the water. I let him inside, made him a cup of coffee, dropping some sleeping pills inside. He slumped over in his chair, and I was out the door. That was when it all changed. I was on the water, drifting about with no clear direction, when I felt it. The voices dropped away to nothing. The boat rocked ever so slightly as something scraped it from below. At first I assumed it was a stick or a turtle, but then it turned from a singular scratch to a frenzied, frantic scraping. I could hear what sounded like fingernails or claws against the wood, like a dog begging to be let in. The vessel rocked back and forth only slightly, then evened out as the scratching stopped, leaving me in a sudden silence. The water was utterly still, reflecting nothing but myself and the morning sky. That was when the knocking started. A polite, gentle rapping of knuckles coming up from below. It was so soft, but so distinct. Something deep inside me wanted to reach down and open a door that wasn't there. It was impolite to keep someone waiting out there. The boat continued to move. I hadn't paid it much mind until the light changed. I looked up to find myself beneath the old bridge. I could hear no voices or whispers, only a quiet knock from below. That crushing reality of my being alone came back all at once, a weight around my neck. All around me was old wood and fog. The water was a perfect reflection of the soft white air. Old posts stuck out of the water like monuments, showing where buildings used to be so many years ago. The knocking remained at the same, even pace. Slowly, almost without conscious thought, I began to reach down towards the boat floor. I grasped nothing, and pulled. The whispers rushed in with the water. Thousands of people speaking over each other, but not one of them deigned to raise their voice. The cold water of the lake rushed around my feet, my ankles, my shins. The boat sank lower and lower beneath the bridge. Soon I was floating listless in the dark water, my vessel dropping away into the depths below. I watched it fall and fall, the lake around me now a fathomless void. There was no difference between above and below. The voices screamed in my ears, and I screamed back. I screamed the name of my wife, my son, my friends and loved ones, all the people who left me alone in that house. I could hear them fighting for dominance with the others. My Dahlia wailed like she had often before she passed. My son rattled off swears like he did as a teenager when he still talked to me. The weight of my existence bared down on me from all sides, the crushing pressure of the bottom of the sea. My lungs burned, my head felt like it was going to explode. All I wanted was to sink to the bottom and let it all fade away. I was no longer a person, I was a point in space where everything rested. Everything was screaming and aching and loneliness and pain. I knew deep within myself that I would stay in this water forever. I would drift within this feeling for the rest of time. Not even death would release me if it could find me down here below the surface. They pulled me from the water next to the docks. I'd been seen face down in the water, my boat still moored to its usual post. I was unconscious and, for a moment, assumed dead. Once I'd finished spitting up water, the police took me down to the station. They'd found the dead officer in my kitchen, the cup still with residue on the side from pills. I pled guilty. My son visits me now. We don't argue anymore. I can't hear him over the voices, so there's really nothing to argue about. At least I don't have that awful feeling anymore. I'd just like to hear my son. Well, isn't that lovely? A story about a lonely old man and the water. I do feel a little bad for him. It's a sad reality of many people. Although most don't kill people who check on them or chase voices in the water. This old bridge is interesting. It's the first I've heard of it, so maybe I'll find something there. It's apparently a residual structure from the original town before the flood in 1800. There's nothing related to a body or these stories here, and I don't really feel like doing any research on this man. More than anything, I just don't appreciate these stories showing up in my house. Whoever or whatever is leaving them for me doesn't really have respect for privacy. I'm going to explore more today. Maybe I'll check out that bridge if the rain lets up. I'll update you if I find anything. End a personal log. Hello? Hello, yes, I can hear you, and I don't appreciate being followed in the woods. Come out, please. Oh, what is that? Whalefall Gone and Forgotten, Episode 9, Waterlogged, was written, edited, and produced by me, Cat Duncan. How do you do, my fellow kids? It's been a crazy month, actually. First things first, I would like to once again thank Nox War for donating. I would like to add more names to that list, so Nox War isn't lonely. They're getting some cool perks. They have access to episodes a whole day early, and a whole section of my Patreon where I post little doodles related to the show. But, you know, if that's not your cup of tea, we also have the $3 tier, where you get episodes a day early, as well as some exclusive content. And if you want to donate a little more at the $10 tier, I don't have it pulled up right now, I'm pretty sure it's $10. You also get everything from the previous 2 tiers and access to the Lake Fargo gallery, where I post, like, fully rendered artwork from the show. So yeah. Anyway, I hope everyone's doing well. I just moved back to my childhood home after graduating college, which is crazy, but that means I'm also back in the town that inspired Lake Fargo in the first place, so maybe you'll get some funky stories from that. The funny thing is, last month was a whole episode about, like, grasshoppers, and now my yard is covered in grasshoppers, and one person on TikTok said I should write an episode about $1 million. That would be great, actually. I have a new recording setup. I hope it works for everybody. And I hope you have a lovely month. I will see you next time. Okay, thanks. I love you, bye.